Today we start with the course. Now, before I get started, we have distributed a list of readings to you. Have you all received that sheet? Please have a look at this. And what I have tried to do is that for the first paper, topic wise, can you show me that list? I don't have a copy. That what is mandatory reading from Harold Booth for the first paper. But this is different from the readings for paper 1. This is only Harold Booth. So what I shall do to begin with is I'll take up each topic in the paper 1 and I'll tell you what to read from where to read. Do you have the syllabus with you? Do you have the copy of the syllabus with you? No. See, there is this kind of booklet available in the market. Get hold of that. It has the syllabus and also previous year's question papers. So, we'll keep referring to it because every topic I take up, after completing the topic, we will discuss your doubts based on previous year questions. See, you are not here only to learn sociology. You are here to score well in the exam. So you should constantly have an idea as to what is being asked in the exam on this topic and see whether you will be able to handle that properly or not, given the information that we have supplied to you. All right. That information will consist of my class lectures and the readings that I suggest. After going through that, you will constantly see this vigilance you have to show if you really want to pass the exam. Otherwise, you would be also ran type. You understand? Also ran. That I was also there in the race but nowhere to win. So you have to be involved. You have to be vigilant. So for every topic that I cover in the class, you should look back at previous year's questions on that topic and see whether you can handle them. Now, you may remember some of you who came for the orientation lecture and otherwise that I shall tell you how to think about the questions. All right, but practice you have to do to think about the questions. Only when you are constantly referring to the questions and knowing how to put down your ideas and knowledge in the answer, then only you will be able to do well. I repeatedly say that you should not adopt Lord Hanuman approach. That bulk of information, Lord Hanuman was supposed to get one herb, but he did not know which herb is that. So he carried the mountain. This is what students do. They'll cram everything and pour out everything in the answer and don't get marks. So that frame of mind has to be developed. And that is why you should constantly keep looking at previous year's questions. Catch me wherever you feel there is a gap between what I have taught and what the question demands. If there is a gap, I'll give you additional lecture or tell you how to improve on that. All right. Now, our approach is read less and think more. All right. Some amount of reading you will have to do. We can't altogether give up reading because most of you are not from sociology background. Am I right? Anyone who is with sociology background? All right. Nandika is there. Very good. All right. Otherwise, nobody is there with the sociology background. So, some reading and familiarity with the subject is required. That much of reading you will have to do. But whatever you read, see whether you understand it clearly and link it to the question to think about the answer of the question. Now, the first topic that is there, sociology is a discipline. That's the first topic in the paper 1. One more thing I am telling you, that we will cover 98% of the syllabus. And you can't afford to, miss out sizable areas. At least 95% of the syllabus you will also have to prepare. Reason being that now you don't need too much of information. In a way, it has become easy also. You don't have to cram so much. You have to think and have 3-4 points for an answer. Because they are telling you, don't write more than 150 words. Or at the most, in bigger questions, don't write more than 300 words. You don't need huge bulk of sociology. But they ask you 19 questions, which is spread over the entire syllabus. So there is not much of a scope for leaving out the area. All right. And our target is 98% of the syllabus we will cover. Now, the first topic, sociology, the discipline. Here, there are 3 units in the first topic. Modernity and social change in Europe and emergence of sociology. This is the topic I am going to take up today. All right. Now, what does it mean? It means, how did sociology emerge as a consequence of some changes in European society, which has been called modernity? Now, for this reading, a very short handout I have given to you already. It is an abridged form of my lecture. Because why I have prepared this short handout for you, that this topic is not given in Haralambos or any other book, except in a book by T.B. Bottomore, in which you have to read first 80 pages. All right. But in that also, it is not a textbook. Actually, it is not for a beginner. All these spams keep calling at this time when I am in the class. So, what that book will do initially is to confuse you, because there will be so many questions which will come to your mind, because it doesn't explain from the scratch, from a beginner. But I still recommend this book. The reason being that to stimulate doubts in your mind so that you ask questions. It is like teaching you swimming by throwing you in shallow waters. I am not throwing you in deep waters. But shallow waters, in order to survive, you will start moving your hand. So activate your mind. I want to activate your mind so that you ask questions. My problem is, student very, patiently listen to the lecture, note down like a stenographer, and don't think at all. I don't know how else to stimulate thinking in you. That is why I am asking you to read these 80 pages. You take, let's say, 10 days to read these 80 pages at least twice and identify your doubt. I'll hold a special session for you where I'll clarify all the doubts. In fact, most of the doubts will get automatically clarified as we proceed. If something still remains, I'll clarify it. So don't be very scared. Don't be chicken-hearted. That, oh, I'm not understanding. Sociology is very difficult. I don't want to read this. Don't have that. I'm there to help you. Like a swimming coach is there in the swimming pool. He will not let you drown. So anywhere you get stuck up, you bring the book every day in the class. Tell me which line you are not understanding. I will explain it. All right, that is an assurance. So, immediately modernity and social change in Europe, you read my note after going home, after the class. It is an abridged version of the lecture. So, class lecture and this note should suffice. But in the 10 days time, don't forget and don't give up. Bottom. Do read bottom. There is one PDF with the institute that they will give you from bottom. And otherwise, there is a fellow who comes downstairs when the classes begin. Today we have just started. You will find a fellow waiting downstairs. He will give you the Xerox version of those 80 pages. You don't have to buy bottom. Just get that Xerox version, which will be 4 or 5 rupees or something like that. That Xerox version of 80 pages only. I don't want you to read entire bottom. So please, I am repeating again, requesting you that take, if not 10, say 15 days, but read those 80 pages. All right. Then the second topic is sociology and its comparison with other social sciences. All right. This also is there in those 80 pages. And this topic, now listen to it carefully, I will not take up immediately. The reason I tell you that because you are all new, right now if I pass a comment or judgment on sociology, you have no idea. So how sociology is different from social anthropology, how sociology is different from psychology, political science. Last year there was this question, the differences and similarities between political science and sociology. So after you've got a grasp of sociology, then I'll take up sociology and its comparison with other social sciences. And then the last topic, which is very simple, sociology and common sense. That also we will include at that time, because we will have to talk about how sociology is different from common sense. So, the class lecture would suffice on sociology and common sense. So, right now we are going to talk about only modernity and social change in Europe and emergence of sociology. Then comes the second topic, sociology as a science. This topic I am going to take on Monday. What is the topic? Science and scientific method and its critique. Why I say Monday? Because I have fixed your classes 4 days a week for lectures. 5th day, from time to time, I'll call you to discuss previous year's questions. All right. So that you have at least 3 days time in a week to prepare, read things and be ready with questions. All right. As such, traveling in this heat, I had a mild heat stroke, in fact, day before yesterday. So it's terrible heat at the moment. So instead of having shorter classes for 5 days, I'll try to increase the time duration and call you 4 days. Then time and again I'll keep calling you on the 5th day. for question discussion only, doubt clarification and question discussion. So now after completing this modernity and social change in Europe, the next topic I am going to take up is science and scientific method and its critique. And very closely related, I in fact wonder why they have duplicated the syllabus setter, positivism and its critique. That also is a topic which covers more or less the same thing. So these two topics I am going to take up next. Reading from for this the institute notes and class lecture and chapter 14 of Syllabus. Chapter 14 is very important. You have to read Syllabus chapter 14 completely. Now, then there are other topics here under the second heading. So, sociology as a science. There are other topics like fact value objectivity. This also I will take up next after covering scientific method and its critique and positivism and its critique. After that I will take up this topic. Then there are topics theoretical strands in research. This I will take up later when I am taking up research methodology, because logically it has to be connected with research methodology. Alright, different theoretical perspectives in research, different ways of doing research, that has to be connected with research methodology. So I will combine those two. My approach is to, yes Praveen? Okay. My approach is to make you understand the logical relationship between different ways of doing research, different ways of thinking about research and methods of doing research. The two are connected. I don't know why they have separated in the syllabus. Now, then we will move on to topic 3. This is research methods and analysis. So this is what I am going to link with different theoretical strands of doing research. Alright. And your reading for this topic 3 would be chapter 14 of Syllabus. That's why I said chapter 14 is very important. It covers 2 topics in the syllabus. Then we come to the most important topic in Sociology paper 1, which is the backbone. In fact, if you cover that thoroughly, then almost 60% of the first paper is prepared, because the entire first paper is nothing but just an extension or application of ideas of thinkers. Now here in the syllabus there are only 6 thinkers, but I am going to take up around 10 or maybe even 12 thinkers. That I have not carefully counted it, but I will take up many more thinkers besides the ones which are mentioned in the syllabus. The difference is that the syllabus thinkers I will take up in very detailed. Other thinkers I will make them brief so that you clearly understand. Why am I taking those additional thinkers? One, UPSC sometimes cracks a practical joke on the students by asking a question which is not directly mentioned in the syllabus, but which is related to what is mentioned in the syllabus. I will give you an example of the last year's question which I remember. I am also planning to put that brief description in a YouTube video. You can see there also, and I will take up in detail in the class. Last year there was a question dramaturgical perspective of Irving Goffman. What is dramaturgical perspective and how does it help us to understand day-to-day social life? Now, Goffman is nowhere mentioned in the syllabus, but we can justify the examiner's question by saying that Mead is mentioned in the syllabus. There is a thinker called George Herbert Mead that is mentioned in the syllabus. Now, Mead only lectured, he never wrote anything. That was his unique style. He was a very good teacher, but never a writer. So, based on his ideas, other sociologists who were his students, they took down class notes and converted them into book length. All right. And attributed the authorship to Mead. So, there is another sociologist, Herbert Blumer, which I am going to talk about. And another colleague of Herbert Blumer was Goffman at Columbia University. He was also influenced by Mead. He has developed further on Mead's ideas and presented a new perspective which is marginally, slightly different. So, I will talk to you about Blumer as well as I will talk to you about Goffman. Like this, the connected thinkers also I will take up. And there are some thinkers which I will talk about because understanding them would be essential to understand the thinkers in the syllabus. You will understand the thinkers in the syllabus better if you understand those thinkers with whom the syllabus thinker is in continuity. On this topic on thinkers, I am going to spend at least 20 lectures, maybe more. All right. More I said, in case you don't understand or you have any doubt, and I'll repeat, clarify, elaborate, whatever needed, but we'll make sure that you really understand these thinkers. So, reading for this. The Institute study material, Haralambos chapter 14 and 15, and for Mead, because Mead I have not included in the Institute study material, reason being that Mead is very well given in the book by George Ritzer, Sociological Theory by George Ritzer. So, only for Mead, if you want, you can read George Ritzer. All right. So, again you can take up the Xerox notes from that fellow only on Mead. All right. Otherwise, class lecture and the study material that we will give you would suffice. For other thinkers. And you don't have to go by my saying. You have previous year's questions on thinkers. You should be able to answer every question on thinkers that has been asked so far. Then you can be reasonably convinced that you know enough on thinkers. You don't have to be unnecessarily insecure and worried. Clear? Then topic 5, stratification and mobility. For this topic 5, Haralambos is good enough. What all topics in the chapter from Haralambos you to read, I have given you in the sheet. the first chapter 1 of social stratification. What are the headings you have to read from Haralambos? That is given in this sheet. Is that clear? So, you know what exactly to read from her. You don't have to read the entire chapter on stratification. You have to read only these headings. Then, next topic in syllabus is work and economic life. This is a topic which no sociology book discusses clearly. Indirectly they do, but explicitly they don't. But you don't have to be worried. My lecture, I'll cover the topic. Class lecture, if you are regular, if you are not frequently absenting from the class lecture, then you can be sure that you will be able to handle. Now, here in this, there is a small problem that I think there is a repetition of the topic. In the end, they have talked about labor and society relationship. But the earlier two topics are only about that, how labor and society are related. So, I don't know what additionally the examiner demands. So, that is why I don't take up this topic. That is why I said 98%. That 0.5% may be this topic, which, but there is no distinct question has come so far. This syllabus has been there since 1907. What I have covered in the topic, nothing beyond that has been asked. Otherwise, I could have got a feedback that what else is he asking. So, every aspect of this is covered in the class. And rely on class lectures. I will go slow, dictate, ensure that you are able to understand. Then there is this topic 7 in the first paper, politics and society. Class lecture, Haralambos, there is a topic politics in Haralambos. This is the chapter 9 of Haralambos. Chapter 9 of Haralambos plus class lecture and some units from IGNOU MA study material. Particularly civil society and its relationship with democracy, then new social movements, all this is given only in, it is not given in Haralambos, but it is given in IGNOU material. And I will cover it in the class. So, class lecture, IGNOU material and Haralambos. Then topic 8, religion and society. This is given in chapter 7 of Haralambos, religion. And this I will cover in the class also. My class lecture plus Haralambos would more than suffice. Then topic 9, systems of kinship. Again Haralambos and class lecture. Then topic 10, social change in modern society. Unfortunately, Haralambos does not talk about this. Now, you have to depend on my class lectures. Actually, what I am going to tell you the first day when I take up this topic, that you will be pleasantly surprised that you already know half of this topic. How? By thinkers that I would be doing. Because the first topic here is theories of social change. All the theories have been given by thinkers. Thinkers we are going to cover in detail already. So, all that material I will quickly repeat that in the class. All right. That's how the same thing is going to happen also with other topics. But most conspicuously with this topic. Then, another aspect would be science and technology and social change. Then that class lecture would more than suffice. We will give you some handouts and class lecture. Then there is one topic, development and dependency, under this heading. Development and dependency, you rely mainly on class lecture, plus IGNOU study material has a unit on development and dependency. You read that plus class lecture. That alone is not enough. Class lecture would be needed. All right. But for reading, otherwise there are complete books on this topic which is useless because you have to write only 150 words or 300 words. So, class lecture plus IGNOU material is more than enough. So, this is the reading on the first paper. Now, in the handout that I have given, there are some additional things. Sex and gender. This topic is related to systems of kinship. The topic which I have mentioned, topic 9, systems of kinship. In that, there are questions on patriarchy, gender, all that. So, sex and gender and its implication on gender inequality. That is the main theme. So, I have mentioned the chapter of Haralambos. Sex and gender is the title of the chapter of Haralambos. What are the units you have to read under that chapter? All right. For patriarchy and sexual division of labor and gender inequality. Then there is this race and ethnicity. This topic is given in chapter 3 of Haralambos, race and ethnicity and nationality. So, you have to read these 3 topics, ethnicity, minority, ethnic groups and nationalism and identity. These topics are mentioned under politics and society in the syllabus. Chapter 7 of the syllabus, politics and society, talks about nation and earlier topics, stratification, also talks about ethnicity. So, those topics are covered in the class, and for reading, you have to read chapter 3. Then there is a topic on poverty. It is a part of social stratification. For that, there is a chapter called Poverty, Social Exclusion and Welfare State in Haralambos. From there, you have to read it. And chapter 14, as I told you already, and chapter 15, these 2 chapters you have to read entire. So, Haralambos you must have seen is the Bible. It covers so much part of the syllabus. In fact, chapter 15 covers thinkers. All right. So, that if you want to read up something on thinkers, light reading, along with institute study material, you can read chapter 15. So this is about paper 1. Now tell me if there is any question. Huh? That is actually related to Merton, a thinker. So I'll cover it under thinker. But in Haralambos it is given under that topic. So I have mentioned that heading, chapter 6. Actually that is connected to the ideas of R.K. Merton. Any other question? Tell me if there is any other question. All right. Now, I'll briefly talk about paper 2. There are 3 general readings. Since you are taking the exam in 2025, the whole thing is from 2025 perspective that you have time to read. So slowly start reading along with covering the topics in the first paper. Take out some time, that's why I'm giving you 3 days in a week to read on your own. Start reading a book called Society in India by David Mandelbaum. All right. This will be helpful also to cite examples in the first paper, but it will prepare the background for the entire second paper. It's a simple book. Only thing is it is little voluminous. Don't get scared. Slowly read it. You can give yourself 10 to 15 days to complete this book. All right. Reading 15-20 pages a day. Now, David Mandelbaum. See, the whole exercise is being given keeping in mind, one, that you are taking the exam next year. Secondly, that you are serious about scoring 300 plus. Because it will build such a base for you in the second paper that you will be able to talk freely. Other things which I am going to talk about in the class or what you are going to read in IGNOU material, to understand that, usko samajhne ke liye aapko, you will have to go back to this. So this background will help you. We are going to be there for 4.5 and if need be 5 months. So don't get worried. I'll be around to clarify if there is any problem. Then there is another book, Changing India. By Robert Stern. This is a small book relatively, but it has to be read carefully. Robert Stern, S-T-E-R-N. And third book, India Development and Participation by Amartya Sen and Jean Drèze. Jean Drèze, D-R-E-Z-D, J-E-A-N, D-R-E-Z-D. Jean Drèze and Amartya Sen. You know, India's Nobel laureate, Amartya Sen, economist. He has written this book. It's very simple. And these two books Robert Stern and Amartya Sen will also help you to handle your essay paper and GS social background, social issues paper. That will give you a very good understanding of the issues involved in present day society. He'll talk about democracy, he'll talk about gender issues, population issues, like that. And it's very simple, you will be able to understand it. The only small problem is that the data which they talk about are based on 2001 census. So I'll give you recent data that you can replace by the current data. Then we come to this is general reading. Then we come topic wise. Paper 2 is divided into 3 parts, A, B and C. Part A is introducing Indian society. Introducing Indian society. For this, class lecture and institute study material. Then, second unit of part A, impact of colonial rule on Indian society. So, class lecture and institute study material. All right. And for some units, you will have to consult Bipin Chandra's freedom struggle, which you will be reading anyway for your general studies. Social reform, that topics are Arya Samaj, Brahmo Samaj, Pratna Samaj, Veda Samaj, these social movement, Aligarh movement, these social reform movements in modern India. That you will have to read from. We will give you study material also for this, and you can consult Bipin Chandra. Then we come to part B. This has completed part A. Part B has 6 units. Part A had only 2 units. Part B has 6 units. Now, first unit is rural and agrarian social structure. So, class lecture plus IGNOU material. In India, in the 50s and 60s onwards, actually starting in late 30s onwards, there have been hundreds of village studies conducted by sociologists. It is about them, that idea of Indian village and village studies. Only thing is, the IGNOU material does not talk about recent trends in the 21st century on village studies. That I will cover in the class. So, class lecture will cover everything. Some reading to fall back on is IGNOU material. But recent studies are not there in any book. I have, through various sources, collected a list of those studies, and I will give you the gist of those studies in the class lecture, which will be more than enough. Then, land tenure system, land reforms. So, institute study material and class lecture. Then, unit 2, caste system. Class lecture and institute study material. Here, though I will cover in the class, but it is not mentioned in the syllabus, but they ask in the exam sometimes, Ambedkar's view on caste. It is indirectly related to untouchability. Untouchability is mentioned in the syllabus. So, for that, IGNOU material plus class lecture. Then, Unit 3, Tribal Communities in India. Class lecture, institute study material, and IGNOU. Few topics from IGNOU that when you have, I have mentioned the topics you have to pick up on IGNOU in the last page. In the last page, what aspect of the IGNOU material from which book? There are different books, their book code is given like MSO 004, MSO 003, like that, and which topics in that topic numbers are also given. So when you will see the IGNOU material, you will know which the tribe, the topic on tribe that you have to read. Very little is only to be read. The rest would be all covered in the class lecture and institute study material. Then social classes in India. IGNOU study material and class lecture. Plus, there is one essay, or I think there are two essays. There is a book called Caste Its 20th Century Avatar, edited by M.N. Srinivas. You don't have to read the book. That Xerox man will give you those two essays. One is Panini's essay, another one I am not recalling at the moment, which I'll let you know. Those two essays you will read. In that, new situation of caste and class also is given. So, IGNOU material, those two essays and class lecture complete. The title of the book is Caste Its 20th Century Avatar. You understand the meaning? He is saying what is the nature of caste today in the 20th century. In fact, now we are in the 21st century. So, this book was written by M.N. Srinivas, edited by M.N. Srinivas around 1998, but which is quite relevant even today, and that essay is very simple to read and understand. So, you don't have to read the entire book, only that essay. Then, systems of kinship in India, institute study material and class lecture. Then topic 6, religion and society. Religion and society. For this, class lecture alone would suffice. It's a very short topic. The main issue here is just a description of religious communities and problems of religious minority. The questions come primarily on problem of religious minority. So that I'll discuss in detail in the class, and you can rely only on the class lecture. Then we come to part C. Here there are 7 units in part C. Unit 1, class lecture and institute study material. The title of the topic is Visions of Social Change. Then Unit 2, Rural and Agrarian Transformation. So, institute study material and class lecture. Unit 3, Institute study material, class lecture and IGNOU. Unit 4, class lecture and IGNOU. Then unit 5, there is one IGNOU booklet. I'll let you know the code in the next lecture, which consists of all the social movements in India. All right, that Xerox man who will come, he will have this. He has been supplying this to the students last week, in the last year. So all the social movements are there. So class lecture plus that IGNOU booklet. Then population dynamics. There is a book by two authors, Bhende and Kanitkar, Population Studies in India. You don't have to read the entire book. The relevant areas, you can get the Xerox of that and read up those areas along with class lecture. In the class lecture, I'll give you the latest data. Population Studies in India by Bhende and Kanitkar. है बेटा, बोलो जोर से. वही रेलेवेंट मटेरियल तुम्हें मिलेगा. वो जीरोक्स वाला जो मटेरियल देगा वो वही देगा जो मैंने क्लास में डिक्टेट कराया था. समझे? अगर आपके पास आप किताब लेना चाहें तो मैं क्लास में मार्क कर दूंगा, वरना मैंने मार्क किया था पिछले बार और उन्होंने उससे कांटेक्ट किया, वो वही मटेरियल देगा आपको. यू विल गेट द रेलेवेंट मटेरियल ओनली. Then last topic, that's about problems of change in India. So institute study material and class lecture. That will cover the last topic. So this is about your readings for both the papers. In addition to this, you will have to keep reading the newspaper regularly, which you will have to do anyway for your GS. And while reading the newspapers, anything related to social issues, related to the topic in the syllabus, keep that in mind, read it with interest, and you can talk to me that is this topic important from sociology's point of view, like that. So I'll tell you what, articles to read if wherever you have a doubt. When you are clear yourself, like caste census is an issue. So anything on caste census, you should read with interest. Uniform Civil Code is an issue. Like that, there are various issues which will keep surfacing now and then. Citizenship is an issue. So, articles on that you will read. So most of them you will know yourself. So this is about the readings. Now, any question about the second paper readings you have, please tell me. Unfortunately, we don't have a Haralambos like book. हैं जोर से बोलो बेटा, ऐसी कोई स्टैंडर्ड की किताब नहीं है, समझे, जो सेकंड पेपर के जो पेपर को आंसर करने में आपकी मदद करे, समझे. सेकंड पेपर पे वी डोंट हैव अ कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव बुक लाइक हेरेलम्बो, बट देयर आर टॉपिक्स. आई हैव ऑलरेडी गिवन टॉपिक वाइज, समझे. अब ट्राइब पे है, अगर आप पढ़ना चाहें, आपके पास फुर्सत है, there is a book by जा वर्जीनियस. अब मैं इतना ज्यादा आपको ओवरलोड नहीं करना चाहता, समझे. अगर आपको पढ़ने का इंटरेस्ट है, उसमें इश्यूज ऑफ इंटीग्रेशन वगैरह अच्छे से डिस्कस किए गए हैं. एक्स ए जा की स्पेलिंग है एक्स ए जा वर्जीनियस. स्टेट एंड ट्राइब इन इंडिया, समथिंग लाइक दैट इज द टॉपिक. वैसे पॉपुलेशन के लिए मैंने बताया वो भेंडे एंड कानितकर आप पढ़ लीजिएगा. अगर आप किताब लाएंगे तो मैं पेजेस मार्क कर दूंगा, ये पेज पढ़ो है बेटा. नितिन सांगवान भाई देखो, मेरे को 1 year ago somebody showed me Nitin Sangwan. I did not find it satisfactory. आपके पास है तो आप ला के दिखा देना मुझे. अब मैं उसको ध्यान से देख के आपको बता दूंगा कि कोई कौन कौन से चैप्टर ठीक है. What I remember that Nitin Sangwan book is written by a mechanical engineer and a dentist. All right. So the kind of sociology they have written, I think Haralambos is more reliable. I mean, it should have the quality. समझे. वो छोटी किताब है इसलिए आप अट्रैक्ट हो जाते होंगे कि इससे सारा काम हो जाएगा. आप ये देखिए, एक टॉपिक को पढ़िए और फिर उस टॉपिक के क्वेश्चन देखिए, वो हैंडल हो जाते हैं. All right. Can you handle the questions related to that topic on the basis of Nitin Sangwan? That will give you an idea. Or you can show it to me next week when we resume. I'll have a look, careful look at it and tell you कि भाई जो काम का है वो ये पढ़ो. बेटा एंथनी गिडिंस बहुत टेक्निकल हो जाएगा. 2 हैं एंथनी गिडिंस की किताब. एक तो कैपिटलिज्म एंड सोशल थियरी है, वो मार्क्स, वेबर और डर्कीम को डिस्कस करती है. वो थोड़ा टेक्निकल ज्यादा है. उससे अच्छा रिट्जर पढ़ो, वो सिंपल है. रिट्जर 2000 समथिंग 21st सेंचुरी है, वो किताब 1970s की है और वो टेक्निकल भी ज्यादा है. मैंने पढ़ी हुई है वो, लेकिन इट इज डिफिकल्ट रीडिंग. आप लोग जो बिगिनर हो उसको देख के घबरा जाओगे. एंथनी गिडिंस में ऐसे कोई खास चीज नहीं. देखो, आई एम टेलिंग यू, आई एम सॉरी, आई एम speaking in Hindi. I am translating it also in English if anyone has a problem understanding Hindi, repeating the same thing in English, that if you are able to answer all the previous year's questions on thinkers, then you should be confident that you know enough. Okay? And in the exam, you don't have to write a thesis. You have to write only 250 to 300 words for a 20 marker, 150 words for a 10 marker. इतना पढ़ के उसको how would you reduce it to 300 words? तो कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे, लॉर्ड हनुमान बन जाओगे. मैं वो नहीं होने देना चाहता. All right. Any other question? इंडियन थिंकर्स जो हैं वो कवर्ड हो जाते हैं. फर्स्ट टॉपिक जो था पर्सपेक्टिव्स ऑन इंडियन सोसाइटी, उसमें उन्होंने जीएस घूरे, एमएन श्रीनिवास, एआर देसाई के बारे में बोला है. और पर्सपेक्टिव्स ऑन द कास्ट सिस्टम में घूरे, श्रीनिवास, लुई डूमो और आंद्रे बेते के बारे में बोला है. तो वो जब हम कास्ट सिस्टम करेंगे तो वो कवर हो जाएगा. और इंडियन थिंकर्स में यू कैन ऐड अंबेडकर टू इट. कास्ट पे अनटचेबिलिटी की बात करेंगे तो अंबेडकर और गांधी के व्यूज की बात करेंगे तो अंबेडकर वुड बी कवर्ड. नन ऑफ देम, द इंडियन थिंकर्स, आई एम nationalist, all right, a patriot, but I don't think Indian thinkers have done any major contribution. उनका contribution बहुत थोड़ा रहा है. उसमें सब्सटेंस में जो मीट है वो बहुत कम है। तो और उनकी ज्यादा से ज्यादा एससी दुबे पे भी कई बार क्वेश्चन आता है, वो हम आपको स्टडी मटेरियल में देंगे, समझे। बाकी और ऐसा कोई प्रोफाउंड इंडियन थिंकर्स नहीं है जो मार्क्स, वेबर, डर्कीम, पार्सन्स के कंपैरिजन में हो, जिनके लिए अलग से किताब हो। और एक किताब है इंडियन थिंकर्स की, उसका नाम मैं अभी याद नहीं आ रहा। I have that book and read it, but it's very poorly written. मैं अगले बार आपको बता दूंगा देख के, नाम चेक करके। तो मेरे को नहीं लगता कि उसकी जरूरत पड़ेगी आपको। अगर जैसे एक क्वेश्चन उन्होंने पूछा था अबाउट एन इंडियन थिंकर, दे आस्क्ड अ क्वेश्चन, subaltern perspective by Ranajit Guha. Now that is not in the syllabus. Examiner has totally cracked a practical joke on the students. But हम वो रणजीत गुहा आपको क्लास में करा देंगे, यहाँ लेक्चर में करा देंगे। अब रणजीत गुहा का सबाल्टर्न अप्रोच अलग से पढ़ना, वो भी एक बार बाउंसर आया था, पता नहीं दोबारा आए ना आए, तो क्लास लेक्चर में ब्रीफ अगर हम करा दें वो काफी है, समझे। मैं उस इंडियन थिंकर की बुक का नाम याद करने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ। इट स्टार्ट्स विद समथिंग डी, चलो मुझे अभी याद नहीं आ रहा है? जोर से बोलो, नाम क्या है उसका, थिंकर का, राइटर का, ऑथर का? नागला, यस, डीके नागला। नागला की किताब है वो। इट्स अ वेरी पुअरली रिटन बुक। आप चाहो तो पढ़ लेना, मतलब कोई नुकसान भी नहीं। इफ यू हैव टाइम, नागला's बुक यू कैन रीड। ये मेरा नहीं है शायद, somebody else also has the same dial tone, as a ringtone. और बोलिए, टेल मी अदर क्वेश्चंस। No more questions? Sure. So can I proceed further? ये लो बेटा। Now I am starting with the topic modernity and social change in Europe. Modernity and social change in Europe and emergence of sociology. So the syllabus is asking you to answer the question, how did sociology emerge? As a result of modernity and social change. You've understood the topic? Meaning of the topic you've clearly understood, all of you. अब जब कोई चीज आती है उसके दो पैरामीटर्स होते हैं, दो डायमेंशन होती है। नीड, कि उसकी जरूरत है, सोशियोलॉजी की जरूरत पड़ी, उसके बगैर काम नहीं चल रहा था। वी वर नॉट एबल टू मैनेज थिंग्स विदाउट सोशियोलॉजी, देयर वाज अ नीड फॉर सोशियोलॉजी। ऑलराइट, दिस इज जस्ट कॉमन सेंस, बट नीड alone does not enable you to have that. I need a car, but if I don't have the money, how will I have a car? So there should be means. When both these conditions are fulfilled, you attain what you want. Isn't it? So, how am I going to explain in my lecture? I'll tell you how modernity and social change in Europe created a need for sociology. That's the first thing. But at the same time, modernity and social change also created means to develop sociology. Both these conditions were fulfilled by modernity and social change. And that is why sociology emerged only in Europe, Western Europe. It did not develop anywhere else. Now, if I have to tell you what is sociology, very briefly and simply to begin with, actually this is all our lecture is going to be about what is sociology. But to begin with, as an introduction, sociology can be defined as a systematic attempt which combined reason and research to understand society. To understand society. Sociology is a systematic attempt. And systematic का मतलब क्या होता है? What does systematic mean? Methodical. Or what was the special about that method? That it combined reason with research. In order to understand society. That is where sociology differs from common sense also. That there is a lot of overlap between sociology and common sense, but common sense does not combine reason with research. Sociology does. Now, the attempts to understand the society around us or human society go back to ancient times. In ancient Greece, you must have heard of Plato, Aristotle as philosophers, and there were many others. In ancient India also we had Kautilya, who wrote Arthashastra. It was an attempt to understand the society of that time. In Arabia, Arab world, there was a philosopher called Ibn Khaldun, Khaldun, IBN, Ibn Khaldun. They all made use of reason in trying to understand their world, contemporary world. But they did not combine reason and research. That is why we don't regard their work as sociology. At the most, we can say their work represents pre-history of sociology. Sociology की history से पहले का जो समय है, before the beginning of sociology, that is pre-history. Sociology is only a little more than 150 years old. And that too, it developed only in Europe. So, to understand the reason for emergence of sociology, we have to look at Europe at that time. a little before 19th century. All right. What was there in Europe at that time which created need as well as provided the means? Actually, Europe at that time was undergoing profound change, drastic change. Now, sometimes the changes happening there have been called revolutions. Revolution आप समझते हैं? Revolution means a drastic transformation. Now, why that change should lead to sociology? It created a paradoxical situation. A new paradox. Paradox, समझते हैं आप? Contradictory things coexisting. That is what is a paradox. So there was a paradox in the coexistence of hope and despair. Both the things existed at the same time. Now, what does it mean? Hope means something good was happening, which suggested a brighter tomorrow, a better tomorrow. But at the same time, there were problems and, like conflict, chaos, disorganization, and all various kind of problems. I am going to tell you that. That created despair. Now, these changes were man-made, created through human effort and ingenuity. Ingenuity, समझते हैं? The quality of human mind. So, through that, this world was created, the world of 19th century. See, in Christianity they said, God created society. And Bible says it was done only 7,000 years ago. And it has continued the same since then. That's what Bible says. But in the 19th century, and there is a saying in Christianity, God said, let there be light, and there was light. In the 19th century, people said, Newton said, let there be light, and there was light. The new light means knowledge, insight, opening of your vision. That was because of Newton, not because of God. Though Newton himself was a believer in God in the 17th century. So it was a man-made world. Darwin said it was not Adam and Eve. It was Mr. and Mrs. Monkey with which it began till man arrived. We have evolved over millions of years, not 7,000 years. So, it was a new world that was emerging. A man-made world which was perpetually unmanageable. Somebody has a son who has been nurtured and brought up with lot of care and effort, and then he starts behaving in a wayward fashion. So parents will go to a psychiatrist, क्या करें इसका, कैसे handle करें इसे, how to manage this. That was the kind of situation that a new world had emerged, but that world was unmanageable. That is the kind of situation which I say hope and despair. You understood the point? Now, this change in sociology has been called modernity. In fact, all sociologists of the 19th and early 20th century has been talking about one aspect of modernity or the other. You know, Comte, Marx, Durkheim, Twining, Weber, Simmel, everybody. They were preoccupied with trying to understand modernity. There has been a question also mentioning all these thinkers that do you think their view about modernity was correct? That kind of question has been asked some years ago. So the question then comes to our mind that what is modernity? What does it mean? Here, first I'll tell you the general definition of modernity. Then I'll explain as to what did it mean in the European context. दो बात समझ गए ना? One is general definition which is applicable everywhere. One of the sociologists, Max Weber, has tried to explain the nature of modernity. So, according to Weber, modernity is a progressive advance with respect to 4 dimensions. प्रोग्रेसिव एडवांस का मतलब होता है एक डायरेक्शन में हम बढ़ते चले जा रहे हैं. वी आर कंटिन्यूसली ग्रोइंग इन वन डायरेक्शन. प्रोग्रेसिव. what are these 4 dimensions? Increasing efficiency. That means society witnessed such kind of a change that efficiency to do tasks and to achieve goals increased. All right. For example, a bullock cart is a way of commuting from one place to another. As compared to walking, bullock cart is better. But as compared to car, it is not better. Car is even more efficient. Though today we are thinking, having second thought because of the pollution that it creates. Now, so this is an example of progressive advance in terms of efficiency. See, you have traditional skills in medicine and you have Apollo Hospital. Apollo Hospital is more efficient, isn't it? So this is an example of progressive efficiency, continuously increasing. So if in society the efficiency is continuously increasing, that is one aspect. I talked about 4 dimensions, so this is one of the dimensions. That the change was such that efficiency continuously increased. One. Secondly, calculability. There was advance towards calculability. Simplest example I will give you is money. You know, earlier societies, there was no money. Things changed to measure the value. Idea of value was there, but it was not quantitative. With money, value came to be measured, calculable. It became calculable. आप कह सकते हैं he has so many $billion, so he is more successful than this fellow. Adani is number 2 or 3, or Ambani is the biggest in Asia, whatever. How are they deciding? On the terms of the amount of money which is calculable. So in modern world, we look at things in calculable way. Everything is calculated. How do you say that a particular cricketer, Virat Kohli, is the best cricketer? Because he scores more runs and earns more money. Both are calculable parameters. Even in health, see, आपकी सेहत कैसी है? They don't ask you, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? Do you find the morning very pleasant? Chirping of the bird like music and so on. These are non-calculable things. They'll say, what is your BP? What is blood sugar level? What is, the percentage of proteins? Or, so you have a calculable index. Doctor कहता है, go to the pathological lab. He will give you the result in terms of numerical figures. And on the basis of that, he'll say either you are healthy or unhealthy. This is calculability. So the world is changing in the direction of increasing calculability. Everything is becoming calculable. This is another aspect of modernity. Have you understood this? At any point, anything you don't understand, please raise your doubt. Third, predictability. When things become accurately calculable, it is possible to predict more. Predictability increase. See, scientists can predict in advance when the rocket is going to be launched from Earth, which spot on the moon it will land. This can be predicted on the basis of calculation well in advance. So you can predict the outcome. All right. This is more so in physical sciences, relatively less in natural sciences like biology, and even lesser in social sciences. But we are advancing towards greater predictability. All right. The meteorological department says after 28 there is going to be rain in Delhi. They are predicting something which has not happened so far. So predictability increases. And with increase in predictability, the fourth dimension. Control. There is increasing control. If you can predict something, you can control it. All right. So a society advances in terms of these three dimensions, the four dimensions. This is how Weber defined modernity. And he called this as rational transformation. Modernity is rational transformation leading to progressive advance with respect to efficiency, calculability, predictability, and control. All right. Now, yes, the louder. Repeat the definition. That, according to Weber, modernity means rational transformation with a progressive advance towards greater efficiency, greater calculability, predictability, and control. अब ये तो बड़ी एब्स्ट्रैक्ट और जनरल डेफिनेशन होगी, आपको एक्चुअल कॉन्क्रीट टर्म्स में नहीं पता चला. यू डोंट नो कॉन्क्रीटली एक्चुअली क्या हो रहा है सोसाइटी में. कोई एफिशिएंसी ऐसी चीज तो नहीं है कि रखी हुई वो बढ़ती जा रही है. सो दिस इज हाउ they try to understand what really happened. Now let's come to the point, what really happened. Why I have given you the definition of modernity in general terms? Because sometimes they ask you question in general terms on modernity also, not only in relation to emergence of sociology. Like there was a question, there was a rupture of modernity. So if you understand modernity, you will know what is rupture of modernity. That I am going to discuss with you. So in reality, if we look at Western Europe around 150 years ago, we find there was a change. Change was from feudal agrarian society with a subsistence economy towards subsistence. I will explain the meaning of the whole thing. First, write down feudal agrarian society with subsistence economy started changing into capitalist industrial society. Capitalist industrial society with market economy. All right. Now let us understand this. Actually, if we were to talk about only this topic, that is modernity and social change, then I will not go into detailed explanation of what is feudal agrarian society. But it so happens that topic 6, which I told you, work and economic life, they have asked the nature of work in feudal society. So you need to have a better detailed understanding of what is feudal society. But it doesn't mean you write down everything which I am explaining to you in the answer. Answer में तो आप सिर्फ इतना ही लिखेंगे, feudal agrarian society change into this, because 150 words में if you have to write the answer, you don't have to explain. But I am explaining so that you understand, because you don't have sociology background. So, what are the characteristics of feudal society? This word feudal comes from a Latin word feudalis, which in English is called fief, F-I-E-F. Feudal is F-E-U-D-A-L, feudal. So it is from feudalist, which means fief. What is fief then? Fief was the right to control a man had over land. So what actually happened? Now just listen to it first. We go back to ancient times when there was Roman Empire. So Europe was a part of Roman Empire. Then your Roman Empire collapsed. जैसे इंडिया में Mauryan Empire थी, that collapsed. In fact, similar consequences happened in India also after collapse of Mauryan Empire and particularly after the collapse of Guptan Empire. Feudalism developed in India also. Feudalism developed in Europe also. Feudalism has existed in many societies. It was there in medieval China also. It was there in medieval Japan also. So, feudal society developed in Europe because when there was no central authority, so various people mobilized themselves militarily and acquired control over small territories. All right. They were military leaders. They captured the control over territory and then created a system which has both economic, political as well as a social dimension. मतलब जब सोसाइटी क्रिएट की जाती है तो these are aspects of society. तो इकोनॉमिकली क्या था फ्यूडल? एग्रीकल्चरल सोसाइटी. क्या होता था? That there were the military leaders who captured the territory. They were called lords or nobles. आपने सुना होगा, you must have come across these terms. Nobles or lords. They claimed that we are the owners of this territory. Now, the territory was so large, they could not directly handle that. So they parceled out pieces of that territory. The territory was called the estate of the lord to their supporters. Supporters को कहते थे वैसाल. VASSAL, वैसाल. वैसाल इज अ छोटा लॉर्ड. बड़े लॉर्ड ने छोटे लॉर्ड को कुछ हिस्सा दे दिया. Now it became a political as well as economic. Economically, the vassal was to grow food in that area, that plot of land which he got. Politically, he had to remain loyal to the lord. Whenever the lord wanted, he had to render military service. He had to provide soldiers and fight on the side of law. He had to take an oath of fidelity that I'll remain loyal to you all the time, and whenever you demand, I'll fight for you. So it was a political system, also military system. It was an economic system because it leads to production of food grain, and share of that food grain will go to the lord because lord was the owner of the land. And the vassal also did not work on the land himself. He hired the peasants to work on the land. वो क्या किया? एक small piece of land उनको दे दिया. That production from this part you use for your own survival. Otherwise, work on this land and all the produce will go to vassal. A share of that produce will go to the lord. तो ऐसे एक हायरार्की बन गई. समझ गए? And in every village, those people who did not own land, some people became peasants. They were called serf, SERF. The system is called serfdom. Because serfdom we'll have to talk about when I talk about work in feudal society. So, and along with that, there were artisans who produce, say, leather work, carpenter, masonry, like that. So the artisans supplied their goods in return for food grain. All right. So there was a social hierarchy. अच्छा, इसमें the biggest and the most powerful lord declared himself the king. All right. So the social order consisted of king at the top, then lords, artisans. All right. And along with this, there were members of church. All right. The officials who belong to the church, Christian church. So that is how it was a stratified society. Stratified, do you understand? Strata, layers. Divided was, the society was divided into layers. They were at the bottom, the lord and the king at the top. Fief was that land which was held by the lord. The area, abhi aapne, if you have read yesterday's newspaper, in Haryana there was a revolt by Kiran Chaudhary against Huda, Bhupinder Huda. It was a news. In that she has said that Huda is using Haryana as his fiefdom. The area under his control. जैसे उसका वही मालिक है अकेला. That is why she said, I am rebelling, and she has now joined BJP. Fiefdom. So वो जो estate होती थी, that was the fiefdom. Clear? King and the lord. King was the final ultimate ruler. He was in theory above lord, but at the same time in feudal society, he had a very limited role. As reading about general studies, you must have read about, when you read on constitutions, residuary powers. जैसे like in America, federalism, the president has only residuary powers. Similar was the case here. King had only residuary powers like currency, like laws of trade, and so on. Internal matters of the fief were regulated by the lord. Lord exercised political authority in his estate. So it was a decentralized system. Power was distributed among so many people. And initially there used to be weak kings, because any lord who was ambitious will overthrow the king and declare, I am the king, if more lords support his claim. So king was a weak fellow. So it was an economic system. Acha, what is subsistence economy? Subsistence economy means economic activity that is carried out only to satisfy local needs of the people. This is fundamentally different from market economy of capitalism, where you produce more and more to sell to as many people as possible so that you can acquire profit. See, Nike makes shoes which they sell across the world in every country. In a subsistence economy, they will produce enough for the local village, and after that the shoemaker will stop working. He will ensure that everyone has shoes, and then he would not work more. But in market economy, you tend to produce more and more to earn profit. Here the goal is to earn profit. In subsistence economy, the goal is not to earn profit, to satisfy local needs. That's a fundamental difference. इसका बहुत far reaching implication है that if you are producing for the market to earn profits, you try to be more and more efficient. And if there are other competitors, you try to beat them up. So progressive efficiency. All right. Then to exchange calculability, you need money to buy and sell goods. So that's how this change involved all these dimensions, advance in all these dimensions. So this is the kind of feudal society that economically it had a subsistence economy. There was very little trade. अब कोई चीज 100% तो नहीं होती है ना, it is not 100% subsistence. A little bit of trade did exist. For example, according to one economist historian, economic historian, he says that total amount of goods that entered France in the beginning of the 15th century would not be enough to fill a modern goods trade. टोटल इंपोर्ट जो थे इतने भी नहीं होते थे कि एक गाड़ी मालगाड़ी तो भर जाए. दैट सिंगल गुड्स ट्रेन कैन बी फिल्ड विद इट. So little was the trade. Everything was produced locally. This happened in India also 100 years ago. Every village had a Jajmani system, and cloth, the food grain, the shoes, the machine, the masonry, the not big machines but simple implements like plow, like that, everything that was needed in the village was produced in the village only. Only few things like salt, not every village can produce. That they bought, that came through market. There used to be periodic melas in India where people went and purchased luxury goods or other goods. But for day-to-day routine, everything was produced in the village. It was a subsistence economy in India also. So, such kind of economy, we had a stagnant economy. Production did not grow much. Society also did not change. The kind of world a man lived in was the same kind of world his grandchildren were going to live in. There was not much of a change. So this kind of society was also rigidly stratified. इसका क्या मतलब है? There are layers, and membership of a layer in which you are placed in the hierarchy depends on your birth. If you are a serf, your children would also be serf. If you are a lord, your children would also become lords. This is what happened in caste system in India also. If you are a Brahmin, your children would also automatically become Brahmin. All right. So this is called rigidly stratified. It was not a society where career was open to talent. If I am more meritorious, I can reach a higher position in society. That was not the case in feudal society. This is a characteristic of modern capitalist society, where you start from the scratch as a chaiwala and become a prime minister. So you can jump the ladder, but that was not the case earlier. So it was socially stagnant, economically stagnant, politically decentralized. That is the kind of society we had. Have you understood? Anything you have not understood? I've tried to make it as brief as possible and as simple as I could. So if there is anything still you have not understood, you can ask me. They were, see again I said nothing is 100% true. They were quite rigid, but some people by sheer hard work generate income and were able to acquire some land on their own. So they were no longer serfs, they became free men. Serf was tied through hereditary bonds with the lord and the vassal. But these people, they were able to gain freedom and became independent cultivators, free men as they were called. So like that, some people did improve their position. All right. Some vassals, by mobilizing strength, they were able to overthrow the lord and capture military power there and became the new lord. So to some extent change was there. But otherwise, that was more of an exception. That was not common. Like in India also, people from the lower caste did move to the upper caste. But it was very rare. There is an example only yesterday's Hindu I was reading. There was an write-up on Marathas in Maharashtra. So they are earlier Shudras, Kanbi they are called. And Shivaji was also a Kanbi like that. Some of them became mercenary soldiers, warriors. They started calling themselves Maratha. And with Shivaji, they captured power. So they claimed that we are Kshatriyas and we are upper caste, and they became wealthy because once they have power, they got control over land also. All right. So the article says that in Maharashtra today, they say when a Kanvi becomes prosperous, he starts calling himself Maratha. All right. So there was a movement from Kanvi to Maratha. Isn't it? People did improve their position. Caste system was also rigid and closed, but some mobility did happen. Some movement to a higher position did take place. Same was the case in feudal society also. To some degree, because things are never perfect according to, things keep changing. Clear? Huh. I told you, the Roman Empire was there. When Roman Empire collapsed, single authority of the Roman emperor, that collapsed. So local people, they captured power. That's what happened in India also. There were tribal groups who called themselves, when Harsha's empire broke down, they rebelled because there was no powerful authority, and they declared their own rule in small territories. And to gain respectability, they say we are Rajputra, we are sons of the kings. That means we have always been kings. By that they gained justification for their rule. They became Rajputs. A new caste emerged, which was high caste. So there was a central authority in Europe, Roman Empire. When Roman Empire collapsed, in each territory, people, captured power locally. They were warlords, as they say, leaders, military leaders. So they established control over the estate or the fiefdom, and then divided it into vassals and serfs and artisans. जोर से बोलो, louder. Don't go for that. Sensitization we are going to discuss. That is a case of mobility, when a lower caste person adopts the lifestyle of an upper caste person. So Shivaji also had to undergo sensitization. He declared himself a Kshatriya, and there was a formal conversion, and after that he adopted the lifestyle of Rajputs and claimed a new status, Maratha. So this is a case of sensitization only. Sensitization was a term used by M.N. Srinivas to describe this change. तो आपको feudalism समझ में आया कि नहीं? Have you understood feudalism? All right. Now, this society started changing. Earlier also, change is always there. Sometimes the change is very slow, sometimes it is rapid. First change happened from within the feudal society. What happened? Each feudal lord was independent in internal matters. So they became ambitious and started capturing power to become a king. So factions emerge among nobles. जैसे आपने इंडियन हिस्ट्री के पढ़ते हुए you must have come across Irani party, Turani party among the Mughals who kept on indulging in intrigues in the court. They were nobles who tried to control the king. So similar thing happened. For example, in England, there was 100 years war between feudal lords to capture power and become king. Sometime one faction would win, sometime other faction would win. So continuous warfare. That means disorganization. Now warfare is a very costly activity. To win wars, you have to spend a lot of money, and that money does not give any return. All right. So one thing happened was money economy began, because when nobles wanted to win a war, they would hire professional soldiers. Earlier, they would rely on vassals and serfs, but they were peasants. They were not well trained in fighting, so they were not good fighters. To win a war, they needed efficient fighters. So they started making full-time soldiers, standing armies se kehte hain. So they started paying them in money. But as a result of that, they became powerless. All the money squandered in military activity. Along with this, there were certain external factors which happened. One change was that money started entering society. Because when you pay the soldiers in money, there should be a market from where they can buy their food and clothing through that money. So money economy and trade started growing. And a boost to this trade was given in the 13th century when Marco Polo discovered the land route to Orient, China, India, and other Oriental Asian countries. With that, now at that time, both China and India were far more advanced than Europe. So they started buying manufactured goods from here and selling it in Europe. Initially, it was confined to Italy. You have the, Venice and Genoa and all these, they were major trade centers. Towns started growing. Now, when this happened, Chinese technology also spread to Europe. In fact, mother of all European technology was China. China at that time was very advanced technically. So, mariner's compass, magnetism, and mariner's compass which can show you the direction, and printing press, gunpowder, all these technologies spread to Europe. This enabled the king to become more powerful. He declared a monopoly over gunpowder. So once he had cannon and gunpowder, he can easily defeat and keep the nobles in check. So a powerful monarchy developed. And this monarchy also became powerful because of increasing trade, because there was a custom that some tax, that's why it is called customs. It was a customary practice that some tax must be paid by merchants to the ruler. So when trade increased, more of custom duties, more of wealth, and more of military power, he could maintain standing army, which was more powerful than everybody, and that's how centralized monarchy developed. Single centralized monarchy. And there, whenever anything happens in reality, it affects the ideas of the people also. These kings justified their rule through what is called divine right theory. Like our Prime Minister also said in this election, God has directly sent me to serve India. So kings also said, we are appointed by God to rule. So we have a God-given right to rule. So we must be obeyed. That's how they justified their tyranny. This is what happened in the later part of feudalism. Then another impact of this development was commercial revolution. There are three kinds of revolutions we can identify: economic revolution, political revolution, and intellectual revolution. These are the three types of revolution that took place within modernity, with modernization. So first I am talking about economic revolution. So first phase of economic revolution was commercial revolution. That merchants now tried to acquire profits and wealth through trade. This was the first phase of capitalism. Capitalism is an economic activity which is primarily geared to generate profit or surplus. Economic activity which is primarily geared to generate surplus or profit. In common language we call it profit, in economic language we call it surplus. All right. So capitalism started developing. Merchants, they organized large-scale enterprises, acquired things from China, India, and Southeast Asia and sold them in Europe. This became possible because of mariner's compass. Seafaring, land route was very time-taking. The sea route was shorter, and through sea route, seafaring began. People started traveling in all over the world in the sea through ships. On one hand, that led to discovery of Americas. On the other hand, it led to trade links with the East. And later on, it led to colonization, colonies. This phase of capitalism is called mercantilist capitalism. This is the first phase. In the mercantilist phase, the capitalists supported the king. They needed the support of the king to keep law and to maintain law and order in society. A strong king would ensure that nobles do not indulge in warfare and there is law and order. So they supported the king. They paid happily the taxes to the king, who maintained law and order, and the wealth of the merchants increased. Then, now they had the surplus, they had profits which they accumulated, and this was a hard-earned money. It was not something that they had just inherited. They had taken so much of risk. Imagine traveling such long distances in those rickety ships of those times. They were not ships like today. So it was so risky and time consuming. With that, they traveled to India and China, purchased things and sold them there to make profit. So they would like to use that profit to generate more profit. The opportunity came in the form of land. So these merchants started buying land in the countryside to generate profit, taking the land from the lords. Sometimes the lords themselves became merchants and businessmen. And they started evicting the serf and the artisans and using that land to generate profit. Initially, there were two ways in which profit was generated. One, sheep rearing. Because Europe is a cold climate, woolens are very much in demand. So they'll enclose a large area and keep sheep to generate wool, which would be then used for making woolen textile. Or they use scientific farming. When I say scientific, it is scientific by standards of those days. They did not have green revolution at that time. So not scientific as we do it today, but rational and efficient, and whatever knowledge they have, using that knowledge rather than simply customary activities being carried out to generate profit. So this led to capitalistic transformation of agriculture. Agriculture also became a profit making activity. All right, like Punjab farmers after Green Revolution became capitalist. They produce, that's why they are agitating, farmers are agitating because their capitalistic activity is in crisis. They need minimum support price. That's why they are protesting against those farm laws and all that. So the capitalistic agriculture developed where they produce things to sell in the market to generate more profit. And it also led to urbanization because peasants and serfs were evicted from their land, thrown out. They had nowhere to go but to migrate to the towns in search of livelihood. So population also moved from rural to urban areas. Urbanization began. Now later on, in the meanwhile, there were advances in science and technology also. So combination of the three, capital, that means new wealth, and technology, and cheap labor. These serf and artisans who migrated from the villages, they were poor and helpless. They could be hired for very low wages to work. Cheap labor. So all the three combined, and it led to finally industrial capitalism. Factory mode of production developed, mechanization followed, machine, steam engine and other discoveries were made, new machines were used, initially in textile industry, then in other industries, and industrial capitalism developed. Have you understood this? I have taken more time, I deliberately, because I wanted to make sure that you understand so that it will be easier for you to remember. You don't have to write down the entire story in your answer. That I am warning you. This is only for your understanding. There you will simply say there was commercial revolution, urbanization, capitalistic transformation of agriculture, and finally culminating into industrial capitalism. जोर से बोलो. हाँ. See, for 100 years war, it was not continuous 100-year war. There were various factions who would mobilize their serfs and vassals to fight a battle with another faction. There were broadly two. In England, there were two factions. There, it was called War of Roses because their emblem was rose flower, white and black rose. So they mobilized their peasants to fight wars. Then when that did not prove very effective, then they started hiring soldiers, paying them out of their income from the land, estate. All right. The Lord did not give all the land to the vassal. A large part he kept for himself. That was called damsonay land. Serf worked on the damsonay land. Entire produce of the damsonay land will go to the Lord. So from there they had income. But continuously fighting finally made them poor, helpless. They could be easily suppressed. That is why England was the first country to develop capitalism. Because of this War of Roses and another factor was plague. Plague killed most of the serfs, so there were no people available to work for the lord. So feudalism collapsed. All right. So income came from agriculture initially. Others, when they found the opportunity, as I mentioned, some lords themselves became merchants. So this is how there was an economic revolution. This, say loudly. It was mercantilist capitalism. Industrial capitalism. Yes. I have given you the details so that you don't think that it is magically overnight something changed. It happened very gradually over hundreds of years. So I have tried to describe the entire process, that this is how it happened. But the end product was industrial capitalist society. Now this decimated, you understand, destroyed and broke, the feudal economy. Huh?
What was the combination of three combinations for industrial capitalism?
Yeah, one commercial mercantilist capitalism, and the second, along with that, colonialism. Colonies also provided a support for capitalism to develop, because a lot of wealth was transferred from the colonies to the metropolitan country. Dadabhai Naoroji wrote the drain of wealth theory. So mercantilist capitalism and colonialism, then capitalistic transformation of agriculture, and then industrial capitalism, factory system of production. So all this decimated, destroyed the feudal economy. In feudal economy, the worker, artisan and serf, they were permanently tied to the landowners, vassal or the lord, for entire life. It happened in India also. In Jajmani system, lower caste were connected with landowning families for entire life, and after their death, their children took over. So same, it was hereditary bond that broke down. Contractual relations, wage labor relations, that you work for me, I'll pay you wages, and then it's over. No permanent bondage between the owner and the worker. So wage labor developed. And this happened the first in England and later on in France and Germany. Then free trade developed, competitive trade. Because everyone tried to maximize the profits, sell more and more. That's how colonization, imperialism. So this also led to growth of new technologies, because to outsmart, that is why first scientists and inventors were workers working for the merchants. They are made to improvise, innovate on technology so that they can produce better goods than their competitor and outsell him. So new technologies developed, markets expanded, world trade manual way of work changed into mechanized production. Artisans used to work manually. This gave way to mechanized production. Then new classes, new groups of people developed. Class, what is a class? I'll explain that in detail later on, but for your present understanding, class means a group of people with common economic interests, whose economic interest is similar. So all workers are one class. All capitalists are another class. So the capitalists were popularly called bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie. It's a French word, bourgeoisie. So proletariat. Proletariat is a French word for workers. You can write it in simple words, capitalist and workers. They were the new classes. Unprecedented wealth. Because the entire energy of the society was devoted to generation of wealth. This had never happened before. All right. And this also had an impact on religion. Religion. With the growth of science, religious ideas declined. Religious ideas lost their appeal. I gave you the example, no? That they started saying, Newton said, let there be light, and there was light. It is not God said. Then, change in family also. When people lived in village, they had extended familial groups and a close-knit community of relatives. Now they migrated. Somebody went to one town, another person went to another town. So, broken nuclear families, change in family life. Then there was a negative side to this. That is why despair. In the beginning I said, no, hope and despair. Now, what is the despair? The traumatic side. Urbanization spread, unplanned growth of cities. Urbanization at a breakneck speed, very high, rapid migration of people from rural to urban areas. So, total breakdown of familial and community bonds. You understand? Then, see, it has a very important bearing. Poverty was there earlier also. But when there are people to share your poverty and miseries, it becomes tolerable. Now they were poor and helpless, lonely in the city. And there was great social inequality. As I said, unprecedented wealth developed for the capitalist who hired the labor at a very low wage. Starvation wages, it is said. An economist, the same economist which I mentioned earlier, Hale Bronner, again talking about France in the 19th century, he says that a family of 3 needed 900 francs, franc is the French currency, 900 francs to stay alive in a year. But the highest wage of a worker in a factory, if he remained employed for the whole year, was only 500 francs. So women and children also had to work, sometimes for 18 hours a day, in a very hazardous condition. The condition of the majority of the poor was extremely miserable. Polarization, unprecedented wealth for some and great misery and poverty for many. Now, poverty is the mother of all problems. Disease, because they lived in unhygienic conditions. There was no sanitation, no sewerage, no safe drinking water in the cities. Pollution. So disease, crime, and class wars, fight between rich and poor. Whenever inequality increases, conflict increases in the society. So there were class wars. They became a common phenomenon. So this is about the economic revolution. Now I'll stop here today. Next class I'll take up political and intellectual revolution and its contribution to sociology. If there is any doubt or question you have from our today's lecture, you can let me know. After my lecture, you can read this short note where I have highlighted main points. No question? हाँ मिलिए, आइए बताइए.
महाराष्ट्र से
वो दैट आई कैन मेक आउट.
और मैं मराठी में पेपर लूँ, मतलब मैं
भाई मैं मराठी तो नहीं पढ़ा सकता.
उसका कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, मुझे बुक लिस्ट है वो हिंदी में मिलेगी क्या?
मतलब हिंदी मीडियम में लिखी हुई किताबें.
हाँ वो मिलेगी.
हिंदी में तो मैं नहीं जानता. इग्नू मटेरियल तो हिंदी में मिल जाएगा, लेकिन हेरालम्बोस तो हिंदी में नहीं है. आप दिखा दीजिएगा, एक एक करके ले आइएगा, मैं उसको देखूंगा थोड़ा तसल्ली से. हैं? हैं?
आज दूं के एक किताब
एक है, हाँ तो मुझे
तीन है मेरे.
दिखाइए. हाँ
Celibacy was also practiced.
yes, by priests. There were delayed marriages among Protestants. There were delayed marriages. I'll discuss that also under the relevant topic. हाँ यार ये राम आहूजा, अंग्रेजी में तो इसकी देखो कुछ टॉपिक तो ये कवर करेगा, लेकिन कितना अच्छा लिखा है, क्या लिखा है, वो मैं नहीं बता सकता, क्योंकि मैं हिंदी में मुझे पढ़ा भी नहीं जा सकता, क्योंकि टेक्निकल हिंदी इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट. जो कोलोकियल बोलचाल की हिंदी है वो तो मैं जानता हूं, बट टेक्निकल हिंदी जैसे आधारभूत विचार, वो क्या कहते हैं, धारणाएं, तो वो सब इतनी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड हिंदी है. मैं 40 इयर्स हो गए मुझे पढ़ाते हुए, लेकिन मैंने हिंदी की किताब तो नहीं पढ़ी, तो मैं बता नहीं सकता भैया, ये मेरी कमजोरी है. आप देख लीजिएगा, मैं ये नहीं बता सकता कि ये किताब अच्छी है कि नहीं है. इसमें कई टॉपिक्स कवर तो हो रहे हैं. और दिखाइए. अब उन्होंने सही लिखा है, अब उसने कवर तो सारा किया है, पर ठीक है कि नहीं है ये मैं नहीं बता सकता. कवर तो किया है सारा, कवर तो किया है.
सिर्फ मीड नहीं है, बाकी सब
हैं?
इसमें सिर्फ मीड नहीं है.
हाँ मीड नहीं है, बाकी सारे हैं. कवर तो किया है इसने, लेकिन अगर आप अंग्रेजी में समझ सकते हो
पढ़ने में टाइम लगता है.
फिर इसको पढ़ लीजिएगा. ये भी इंडियन सोसाइटी पे लिखा तो है उसने हिंदी में, लेकिन मुझे नहीं मालूम कि ये सही लिखा है कि नहीं.
थैंक यू.
ओके, एनीथिंग एल्स? ऑलराइट, थैंक यू.